Greetings my fellow animers, it's the animer guy here. I think it's time for me to make a video about this problem. And the key question is, did light really become Shinigami? Or is it just us thinking that way? But you might say, no, the details are too convincing. And the odds are too great. And I totally understand that, especially for light fans, it's a great news. It's giving us this feeling that we might get a sequel for the series. But more importantly, light is alive in a different form, and that is just amazing, right? But we shouldn't let our emotions take over the facts. First of all, there's no solid evidence which tells us that light became Shinigami. By solid evidence, I mean the official announcement or story from the creators. Since we got no evidence, all we are going to do is to theorize on this problem. So I'm going to divide the video into two groups. The details that are against the theory and the details that are supporting the theory. And we will start with the former one. The film is not canon. Why in the first place this theory even conceived? Well, it's because of this scene.
Who are you? I've been looking for you. I want to hear your story. Story? I'll make it worth your while. Yeah.
A mysterious Shinigami meets Ryuk and wants to hear the story about Ryuk's time in the human world. Okay, let's start with the movie first. This scene is from a movie called Death Note Relight 1. The film aired in Japan on August 31st, 2007. 2 years later, the DVD was released in the United States. Although the Japanese version was named Rewrite, their American version was released as Relight. The film scenes are mostly taken from the original series, and it covers the first half of the series with the following few alternate scenes. The scene that L tests Light by showing the second Kira tape to him. In the original one, L shows the video in a small room with the other task member guys in the room. But on the movie, a scene happens in a different setting. L shows the video in an empty theater where there were only two of them. Death of Yotsuba members. In the original series, they all die of heart attack in their meeting in the same room. But on the film, each individual member had their own different deaths, which was gruesome. The scene in the beginning and at the end of the movie where Ryuk meeting this mysterious Shinigami. L's grave scene where Light declares his victory with psychotic laughter, which didn't happen in the original series. And the great thing about the film is that it didn't disturb the main line of the story, but instead added the new sublines to connect to the main storyline, and left us with the huge question mark. However, it's said that the film isn't tied to the original story, but it's simply rewritten the story. That means it is its own story, as we know almost all of the anime full movies are its own stories. Think of the Naruto or Dragon Ball full movies. Are cool stories, but are not related to the Naruto's main storyline, aka canon story. Which is one of the facts that will go against our theory. And there's actually one more film which also does the same thing with the second half of the series. Death Note Relight 2, L's successor. But I'm not going to talk about that in the details on this video, because it doesn't have much to relate to Light becoming Shinigami theory. However, it provides us one important evidence that tells us that these movies are separate worlds from the original series. Because it has some logics that doesn't add up with the original story logic. For example, it's explained how to use 6 of the Death Note, that the conditions for the Death Note will not be realized unless it's physically possible for that human or it's reasonably assumed to be carried out by that human. However, in the added scene where Mikami kills the Kira dissenters, one of his victims die an unnatural death by having his head twisted at a 360-degree angle, which was impossible for a human being, and the effect should have nullified. The name Vision of God. This one is the theory that I came up with. The movie is called Vision of God, and the literal translation from the Japanese is that by vision, it didn't mean some kind of seeing future kind of stuff. It meant hallucination, daydream, or illusion that God have seen. The Japanese title is Genshisuru Kami, which literally means hallucinating God. God is seeing something that isn't real, dreaming about something, and that was the meaning. Maybe because Ryuk had so much fun with light that he wanted so badly to experience that all over again. Thus, imagine that Shinigami, which resembles light in almost every possible way. So Ryuk was just reminiscing light and imagining things. Could be possible, right? But it's not that easy. It's hard to pin down that it was all hallucination because before meeting with Ryuk, the mystery Shinigami had conversation with other Shinigamis by asking Ryuk's whereabouts. So that could disprove this hallucination theory. However, that sequence could also be Ryuk's imagination. Because when Ryuk saw the Shinigami, he wasn't surprised at all, as he was expecting him to come. The Mu. On the final episode, we saw the following phrase: all human, without exception, will eventually die. And after they die, the place they go is Mu, which is in Japanese means nothingness. But actually it cannot be contained in just one word. It's a concept, a one which is very broad. It's mainly discussed in the philosophy of Buddhism. It roughly means not there, non-existing, almost like the English prefix none. I've checked some Japanese forums where people asked if light became Shinigami. Most of the people were denying the theory that light became Shinigami with the concept of Mu. They believe that light simply died and ceased to exist and gone to nothingness, just like an ordinary person. So in here, a man asks, did light become Shinigami? And most answers are practically same, but I will take this one as an example. No, he did not become Shinigami. In the Death Note world, if you die, you won't go to heaven or hell or become a soul, you just cease to exist. However, he is still alive and remains God in his followers' hearts to this day. And this pretty much wrap up what I would like to say on this one. But people are arguing that nothingness means Shinigami world, and light after his death became Shinigami and he is in Shinigami world. It sounds very convincing, but let me show you a few pages from the second last chapter of the Death Note manga, a little dialogue between Ryuk and Light before Light's death. The scene from chapter 107. After Light confessed and shot by Matsuda, he then begs Ryuk to write Nier's name. But Ryuk nonchalantly refuses and writes Light's own name. Light then recalls his first conversation with Ryuk. That goes as follows. Ryuk says, "Don't think that the human who's used Death Note can go to heaven or hell. You'll find out when you die. There's no heaven or hell. No matter what they do in life, those who die will go to the same place. All humans are equal in death." This alone could seal the theory that Light is now Shinigami, because this is literally a fact, not a theory. It is stated in the manga, because Ryuk is saying that there's no such thing as afterlife, therefore you will just cease to exist after you die. And so my point here is that the word nothingness means just nothingness. And Shinigami world is completely separate world from human world. Like how aliens would differ from us in real life. So when we say that Light became Shinigami and nothingness meant Shinigami world, we are seeing Shinigami world as if it's a stage of human life. But that part alone doesn't seem to fit. Instead, we could think of Shinigami world as a completely separate world from human world. Its origins are unknown. In that case, as I said, Light just died, became nothingness as a human being, and nothing to do with the Shinigami world. Think again, that the Shinigamis also die, so they are clearly not a stage of life. They also die, and when they die, they also go to nothingness. So summing up everything, the Shinigamis are just different life forms and are essentially different from humans. Not to mention that compared to humans, they do have a lot of authority over the life of human beings, and they could extend their lifespan and kill human beings just writing their names on the notebook, but they can also die. So this concept of nothingness, regardless of the hierarchy in the existence, applies to all life forms. Okay, now let's get into more exciting part of the video, which are the details that are supporting the theory. First part is user of the Death Note won't go neither to heaven or hell. This part is the continuation for the concept of nothingness, which I've talked about in the last part, and you may wonder why I'm talking about this again. Well, this time it's the other way around. I'm going to take it from the opposite point of view. Most of the Death Note fans are convinced that Shinigamis are ex-Death Note users, therefore the word nothingness could also mean Shinigami world. Because when we think about it, the Shinigami world kind of matches the word. Because Shinigamis are displayed as such that they have no purpose, goals, something to strive to, and they don't even know how they end up being Shinigami. So much authority over human life, but no means of satisfaction from it. It is simply a meaningless world and meaningless life for them, which could implicitly relate to the word nothingness. This theory seems to be the prevailing theory among the fans. Ryuk said all humans are equal in death, but he also said Death Note users won't go to heaven or hell. Notice that he's saying specifically the user of the Death Note. What if all humans go to nothingness when they die, but Death Note users won't? And possibly is the in-between world Ryuk is talking about is Shinigami world? Well, it could be. And remember, Ryuk also said you will find out after you die, as if there will be afterlife for light. The way Shinigami look and behave. Another reason that the people are so convinced on this theory is because the Shinigami resembles light in many ways and also behaves like light in some ways. First, let's compare their appearances. Hair of the Shinigami is in the same color and texture as Light's. The Shinigami is in the same suit just like Light wore in the final episode. Red bandages wrapping the Shinigami's head, same as Light's red tie he used to wear. Shinigami carries the same handbag that Light used to carry when he was in high school.
It's really not that different from one of those chain letters you get. The human whose name is written in this notebook shall die? Come on.
Now let's compare the behaviors and actions. The Shinigami is ambitious and short-tempered just like Light when he became Kira. He was becoming more and more short-tempered and dramatic. Presenting apple to Ryuk. As if he knows Ryuk. This reminds us the time that Light used to feed Ryuk with apples every time he asks help from Ryuk. Well, this one is debatable because the unnamed Shinigami may have asked the other Shinigamis about Ryuk's favorite snack. Not to mention the way that Shinigami walks looks extremely similar to how Light is walking on this scene. Don't you agree, Light? At the end of the Relight 1 movie, the mysterious Shinigami leaves Ryuk's place without finishing the whole story. After realizing Shinigami just left, Ryuk says,
He left. Go ahead, why not give it a shot? If you're lucky, some unbelievable guy might just pick up your notebook. Maybe you'll get to see something you'll never forget for the rest of your life. That's what I think. Wouldn't you agree, Light?
This could be just Ryuk reminiscing of Light and he was just talking to himself, or he said it to the Shinigami because he's Light after all. Well, I leave this to you to decide. I personally think it was just Ryuk talking to himself. That'll be all for today's video, and see you next time with another Death Note video. And please subscribe to my channel if you liked my video, and I'll be doing more and more Death Note videos, and see you next time.